Thank you all for coming here today and spending your precious evening with us.
When you come into a room that looks like this, and you have some wine, and you have some sushi, who doesn't feel excited to be here?
This is our last Girl Geek event of the decade. Raise your hand if you've been to 3 or more Girl Geek dinners.
Speak up and step up. And that's another way of saying, don't be afraid to share your views and use your peers and your colleagues to help you test those ideas. That's been a key to success for me, is overcoming that fear of just putting my thoughts out there and being willing to share those.
30 years ago, I came here from China. Over the time, I climbed up the career ladders through hardworking, collaborating with the teams, and have a lot of great mentors and sponsors along my career way. I'll share some of the tips later.
So I am going to take the opportunity to just talk about innovations and Equinix, how we turn the customer-inspired innovations into products. If you happen to be very excited about incubating new products, come talk to us. We actually have a table over there set up to tell you more about the things that we're doing.
Some things we build from scratch, and some things we stitch together from existing toolsets or applications. What I wanted to talk about, this unique blend of characteristics that we've found often makes for a really good systems analyst.
I work with a lot of innovative people full of creativity. Really believe in diversity and innovation and how it enables us to build better products and create value for our customers.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everybody. I'm Gretchen from Girl Geek. Thank you so much for coming tonight to this gorgeous space. Right? It's amazing here. So this is our last Girl Geek event of the decade. And Angie started this organization almost 12 years ago. So let's give her a big round of applause for doing that. We've done 250-ish of these events now, so please keep coming. We have a little swag store, and I have something from it, this adorable notebook. So we're gonna play a little game. Raise your hand if you've been to 3 or more Girl Geek dinners. Keep it up if it's 4, 5, 6. Avi, I feel like you've not even qualified to win. Okay, 7. He comes every single week. This is 7. Okay, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. Anybody in the back? All right. I have the cutest notebook for you. You're going to love this. And thank you for coming back over and over and over again. And I hope to see all of you guys at ones in the future.
Thank you, Gretchen. Hi, I'm Angie. I think what I have left to say is we do podcasts. We have 20 podcasts that we recorded this year, and you can check them out on our website. We also have videos from talks like these, so if you want to spend your Christmas holidays or New Year's watching Girl Geek speak on YouTube, you can find us at youtube.com/girlgeekx, including these talks probably. And also, one last thing, we're going to be at the Angel Launch holiday party this Friday, and there's a VIP 15 code for you to get your ticket to join us, and we'll be in Palo Alto.
Angel Lunch. Oh, Mountain View.
Mountain View.
Yes, Zahava is hosting.
Thank you.
Everybody's welcome to the Angel Launch holiday party.
Free tickets with promo code VIP15. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Hi. How are you all doing today? Are you all feeling the magic? The magic of Equinix, because we all feel that here every day. So thank you all for coming here today and spending your precious evening with us. Without further ado, I would like to invite our very first speaker, our Chief Product Officer, Sara Baack. Today, Sara will share about her journey from the Wall Street to the C-suite. She will share some key takeaways from her experiences and share her philosophies that she sticks with as a leader. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Dipti. I think you've overbilled me. I feel like I might, hopefully I won't disappoint anybody here who's probably commuted who knows how long down 101 to arrive here this evening. So, first of all, it's so energizing. I don't know how many people would agree with me, but when you come into a room that looks like this, and you have some wine and you have some sushi, who doesn't feel excited to be here? I mean, so I'm really myself excited to be here. So when we organized this event and Equinix agreed to participate and sponsor this space, and I was asked to speak for 7 minutes, I thought, I can't do anything in just 7 minutes. So I'm going to be very brief, but first of all, give a great shout out and thank you to the Girl Geek organization for organizing something as momentous and important as these type of venues. And I also want to certainly welcome everybody who's here and thank in advance the other colleagues and leaders here at Equinix who will be sharing the podium with me today and probably giving you more words of wisdom from a technology perspective than I'm qualified to do, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I'm first told that I need to give you an Equinix commercial. And because I used to be the chief marketing officer of the company, I take that to heart. So for those of you who don't know who Equinix is, we're sort of the best known secret in tech. I like to tell people when I was the marketing leader for the organization. And essentially what we do is we provide data center and interconnection infrastructure around the world that makes your technology work. And so the biggest of the big cloud providers, e-commerce providers, telecom companies come and put their infrastructure into our facilities around the world, and then we interconnect that all together. So the experience that you have when you're on your iPhone using AT&T to go to the App Store, to download the Amazon app, to shop for a Christmas gift for your daughter or son, that whole digital transaction chain is actually fueled and powered by Equinix as sort of the plumbing behind all of that. So that's in a nutshell what we do. I could probably explain that in a deeper technology way, but that's the way I like to explain it to people like my mother or people or friends at parties who don't work in tech and don't necessarily understand the ins and outs of all the layers of IT infrastructure. So that's essentially the power that we supply to the world. But chances are 80 or 90% of the time when you have a digital transaction happening, it's touching Equinix in some way. You just don't know it. So that's a little bit about Equinix. I was asked to share a little bit about my personal journey in technology, and so I'll give you that in sort of a 2-minute snippet if that's possible. But because I'm kind of an accidental girl geek from a technology point of view. I started out as a geek for sure, but a technology geek was something I came into later in my career. So I was the child of 2 public school teachers who were very, very interested in education and obviously kind of saw education as the way to rise up and to continue to progress as people and as humans. And so they always impressed on me learning is one of the most important things in life. It's the thing to relish. It's the thing to put a lot of hard effort into. And so I did that growing up, and they were also very empowering to me in terms of making me feel like anything was possible in terms of what I wanted to do from a career point of view. They definitely wanted me to become an engineer, but instead of that, I rebelled and I became a history major, and I majored in history and economics in college. And then because I had a lot of student loans to pay off, I did what any person with a lot of loans does and says, like, what's the job that can pay me the most that can help me get out of this debt? and I went to work for an investment bank, and I did a 2-year investment banking program, and which turned out to help me with loans, but also help me with life in the sense that it gave me a great exposure to all different kinds of companies, all different types of industries, and it also introduced me to just like how hard and how many hours one can work, because that's it's a bit of a sweatshop when you're working for an investment bank as a junior person. And so I learned a lot about like what my mettle was as a worker, and how much effort I could put in to get a result. And while I was doing that job, I ended up getting approached to be offered to work in the private equity arm of my company, so the part of the company that invests in other companies. And so I said, sure, that sounds great. And so I did this job where my job was to interview all these management teams and decide if my company wanted to invest in them. And I thought, that was really an enjoyable job, but I was totally unqualified to do it. And so I thought, like, I need to go to business school and actually figure out how business is run. So I went to business school, and out of business school, I thought, I'm going to go work in an operating company and actually learn how people create value in a real enterprise, and then I'll go back to investing someday. And for me, I just got hooked on what it's like to be part of creating value sort of in the real world versus on a spreadsheet. And so I never went back to investing, but I used that financial background to begin to leverage my way into other operating roles in companies that I worked for. And so that kind of gets to how I became an accidental technologist, because the first time that I really learned something about network engineering by accident was when I was asked to model the cost structure of a network. And so I had to go and interview every single engineer and say, okay, there's this piece of architecture, like what does that do, and how much does that cost, and how do you break it out on a per customer basis, and then after that, what happens next? Like where does that bit go? It goes into this box, and what does that do, and how much does that cost? And so I sort of accidentally learned my way into aspects of IT infrastructure and network engineering as a result of my finance background. And so I guess one of the key lessons that I would impart to folks here is the opportunity that you have to mold yourself, and the assumptions that we sometimes make about so-and-so's an engineer and so-and-so's a history major. I think I'm sort of evidence that you don't necessarily have to live by the label in terms of what you can aspire to do and what you can learn from. So that's maybe lesson 1. Am I at 7 minutes yet? Probably. I have like 3 or 4 more minutes to go. So that was kind of lesson 1 that I had in a career that I think is maybe relevant. I mean, another thing that I've learned in kind of being someone who's bridged from maybe a business finance background into a technology background is being a good listener. Like a really applicable skill to everything that we all do is being a good listener, because often it helps you. The way that someone asks a question to you might not be actually the answer that they're seeking. So really trying to understand the spirit of what people are asking and being a good listener to try to uncover the problem that's being posed or the opportunity that you have to add value, I think has made a real difference in my ability to make impact in my jobs in life. The other thing I'd say about my lessons learned is that nothing comes easy. I mean, I learned that in my first life as a Wall Street investment banker, in as much as you have to work your butt off, and I did work my butt off, and so I think there's an honest reality for all of us that a certain part of success is sweat and effort, and there's, at least for me, there has been no getting around that fact. But the other thing that I would like to acknowledge is that for folks that have been lucky enough to be in a position that I now enjoy at Equinix, being a senior leader at an S&P 500 company, is just that point. Luck, being lucky is part of the equation, and so it would be wrong of me not to acknowledge that part of the reason I get to enjoy the opportunity to work at this company in the role that I have is being in the right place at the right time, sort of along the path of life, and having the good fortune to have good mentors or talk to the right person at the right time. And I do think that's something that's important to acknowledge, because all of us, I think, are generally wired to work hard and succeed. And if you don't acknowledge that luck is part of the success you have in life, I think you're maybe selling yourself a little bit of a tale. And so I think luck really matters, but as they say, luck favors those prepared, right? Luck favors people who are willing to put themselves out there and willing to take risks. And that gets to my other life lesson, which is vulnerability is a strength, which is something that I think many of us women that's a scary proposition, right? Because we can tend to be, and I don't want to generalize, we can tend to be folks who feel like almost as a need to fit in to a world that's more male oriented, that we have to act a certain way, we have to be strong in a certain way, and I guess for me, one of the things that is probably the message I like to tell a lot of other women colleagues is that it was the time that I was sort of courageous and confident enough in myself to be vulnerable, to cry in front of my all hands, which I have done regularly in my life, to display that kind of emotion, to be able to be willing to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out, to be willing to say, I really screwed that up. Wow, like how can I fix it? To having those kinds of moments have actually been probably some of the most leadership credibility building moments of my career. And so I think getting to a place in your career growth where you have the confidence to display that vulnerability, it can yield like remarkable outcomes that you don't predict, because you're spending a lot of your time figuring out like, how do I make sure like I show up like I know what I'm talking about all the time, and in some weird way, being yourself, like giving yourself permission to be yourself, is actually your most empowering asset, I think, as a leader and as a person who's growing in their career. And then maybe the last thing that I'll talk about, which is a value that we have at Equinix. Equinix is a company that just has an amazing culture, and so I feel lucky to be part of it. But one of the values that we espouse is something we call speak up and step up. And that's another way of saying, don't be afraid to share your views, to put the elephant on the table in a meeting. Obviously you have to do those things in a polite way and in a constructive way, but I think being a person who has the courage to ask the stupid question, like one of the blogs I write is, you're only stupid if you don't ask the stupid question. Or fear of asking stupid questions makes you stupid, right? Because I can count on, I need more than the appendages I have to count the number of times that I have asked a question in a meeting, and someone after the meeting comes up to me and says, I'm so glad you asked that question. And so I think I really encourage people to use their voice, whether you're male or female, and you're working to kind of show your mettle and grow in organizations, is people want your contribution, right? We're all earning a paycheck, and we're all sitting in our chair because people want to know our thoughts. And so overcoming your fear of thinking your thought is maybe not the right thought is something you really need to focus on, in my opinion, to be successful in the workplace. Because I can tell you, like, there for every like one or two good ideas that comes out of my mind, there are certainly 8 stupid ideas that come out of my mind. But you're playing the volume game, right? So as long as you're willing to voice all of those ideas and use your peers and your colleagues to help you test those ideas, ideas. I think that's been a key to success for me is sort of overcoming that fear of just putting my thoughts out there and being willing to share those. And so I know I'm over my 7 minutes now, so hopefully some of these like tiny tidbits have been a smidge of value and slightly worth the commute down here to join us this evening. And so I'm going to now pass the mic to much more august technologists than myself to hear more about what we see happening in the world of technology and to share ideas about that. So I will pass it back to Dipti. Thank you.
Thank you, Sara. Those were very, very informative tidbits. Our next speaker is someone who was a winner of the Women of Influence Award from the Silicon Valley Business Journal, Dr. Freund. She is the Senior Vice President of Product Engineering. She will share how to thrive in a male-dominated tech world and the best practices to be a better leader. Welcome, Yun.
Thank you, Dipti. Well, thank you. Welcome. This is the first time we sponsored Girl Geek, and we're so excited to have all of you joining us. And I was chatting with some of the girls during the dinner, and some of you said, "Oh, why do you join? What makes you want to come to the Geek Girl dinner?" One of them says, "Wow, you always have great food, right? Always sushi, great food." And the second one, it says, "Well, we would like to explore those the company who sponsor this event because they certainly business doing well, they can have the budget to sponsor it. And we're hiring, of course." And third, and the most important, I think, is we care. We care about diversity, we care about inclusion, we care about women. So with that, let me give a quick introduction about myself. Right, so my leadership journey, so Sara shared about her leadership journey. I'm I guess the first generation immigrant. 30 years ago, I came here from China. I grew up in a very small village in China, don't speak any English. And I came here 30 years ago to pursue my PhD in computer science. After 5 years of working in a university, I did receive my PhD in computer science. And I started my journey as just regular engineers. And over the time, I climbed up the career ladders through hardworking, collaborating with the teams, and have a lot of great mentors and sponsors along my career way. I'll share some of the tips later. And now I'm working in various different companies. And I have taught classes at San Jose State, as I was 3 years teaching in San Jose State, computer science as a adjunct professor. I care very much about women in tech and diversity, and advocate and passionate about STEM girls. I have a 16-year-old girl, so obviously this is a very important topic for me too. So talking about a little bit, I think Sara shared a little bit about what Equinix is about. I was sharing with some of the ladies in the audience, what do we do? So a lot of you know we are a data center, but we are also like a best secret high tech. We're building a software platform, and that help you enable you to go to cloud. And so whether you are doing a cloud on ramping, whether you're doing a hybrid multi-cloud, and we have a software platform to help you to have a single button, easy journey to onboard to the cloud. So we will work with all the various cloud service provider. So building the software platform using the latest technology and React.js, Java, and any big data, Kubernetes, and even UX designers and product management we're hiring. So if you're interested in, talk to some of our Equinix talent acquisition team. So talking about a little bit about how to thrive in the male-dominated tech world. So one of my biggest tip I can share, being an immigrant, don't speak the language in a male-dominated world. When you go into a conference room, often it's 20 men sitting in a conference room with me, English not so good. How do How do I express my opinion? I think the first and foremost is about confidence. But how do you build up your confidence? I actually early this year spoke at the LGBT conference in San Francisco. My tip is know your shit. Right? So know your stuff. You got to work twice as hard. Know your stuff in depth so you know every single bits of the details you can conquer. So no matter how they ask you a question, you know it. So over time, you will build up your confidence because statistics says men speak up early when they are only 50% time know about an answer, they will speak up early. Women has to wait until 100% they're confident about the material, then they speak up. Don't do that. When you know 60%, speak up and speak early. And always sit at the front of the table, first line on the seats. So everybody can see you, everyone can hear you, right? When you apply a job, don't wait until 100% match of your skill, apply. Men, only when they 50% of the time match, they apply. So that's my tip, right? So over time, you build up your confidence, right? That's the most important thing. I see a lot of women, you are so talented. You work so hard. And sometimes you say you work twice. A woman has to work twice as hard. But I would say you need to work hard, but you have to share your work. Because otherwise your work is buried in your cubicle. Nobody knows about it. So that's, I think, the most important tips I've had. Over time, I see this is one of the great way for you to build up your confidence, to share your work with others, and to bring it to visibility of all the other team members. So I think that's one thing that most important. I went through that journey myself, right? When I was young, I don't have a lot of confidence. Over years, as you achieve your career and with a lot of supporting sponsors, you can build up that confidence over years. So the second items I want to share is about the mentorship and sponsorship. So I do see that over years, you do need a lot of mentorship and sponsorship. Sometimes it's not easy to find, but I think you will, with your perseverance, finding the person who's willing to invest in you and care about you is so important, right? So sometimes people say, well, I do need a mentor, but sometimes you need a sponsor. Right? Somebody truly believe in you, think you can do the work, and you have to share your work and outline the impact that you're driving, the outcome you're driving, and those sponsors will speak for you when there's opportunity arrive, and they will help you. So that's, I think, the most important thing. And then sometimes we do think that, well, men maybe they don't believe in us, and they have unconscious bias. But I would say, I was reading this book, is really about bring men as part of your allies. Sometimes they want to know you, and they want to be able to help you, but sometimes we don't approach them, or we have a fear in approaching them. I think that's something that it's a kind of a mystery. But so I think along my career, actually, there are a lot of male leaders helped me over my career path and really believed in me and moved me to the next level. So with that, that's, I think, all my tips for today. And thanks so much.
Thank you, Yun. So remember, one takeaway from Yun's speech, if I would remember, is speak up when you know about 60% of what you're talking about. That's still a 10% more than the 50% men are supposed to, talk about when they know something about it. I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Danjue Li, who is the Director of Product Engineering. She will talk about how driving innovation is never easy. In this lightning talk, Danjue will share how Equinix is turning customer-inspired innovation into winning products. Welcome, Danjue.
Wow, I really love the crowd and then the energy in the rooms. We have some really good leadership tips from Sara and Yun. Since this is a Girl Geek, we have to be a little bit geeky, right? So I am going to take the opportunity to just talk about innovations and Equinix, how we turn the customer-inspired innovations into products that we can offer to our customers through the platforms. And I actually got that questions when I was talking to one of the attendees, and then she was asking, so well, hold your question, we're going to share. I'm going to start with one of my favorite questions is, what is innovation? If I walk around and ask you to answer, very likely, depends on who I talk to, you get very different questions, very different answers. So innovation sometimes is considered probably one of the most about terms in business, but what it really means, sometimes it can be very nebulous. And even sometimes it can simply becomes a buzzword, right? So what is really innovation? And then how do we look at innovation at Equinix? I'm borrowing some of the graph, probably sometime you might recognize this from Ideal book. So this graph is called the 3 lenses of innovation: desirability, feasibility, and availabilities. So this is the model that usually startup company founders leverage to build their business models. And nowadays it's also being adopted by non-startup companies who apply design thinking process to their product creation. So this is how we're looking at this, is in order to create a successful product, we need to build something which someone wants, right? And then also something which we call it desirable, and then also something that is feasible, means from organization and technology perspective, is totally doable. We can do it. And then also it needs to be something which is viable, some make business sense. If we build it, we can bring to the market, and then we will not be broke if we push it to the market, right? So if you look at the middle part, what we call it that the sweet spots for innovation. And then when we build the products, we want to target at that sweet spots. So that Equinix, basically that's the target that we're looking at by working with our customers to find that customer-inspired innovations that are desirable, feasible, and viable. And then in order to do it, the approach that we take is what we summarize in 3 phases: dream it together with our customers, deciding it together, and then developing it together. What does that really mean? So in the first, we, as Yun was mentioning earlier, we're in that perfect spot of intersection of multiple different clouds, the intersection of network providers. So we get the opportunity to work with a wide range of customers: service providers, cloud providers, enterprises, content providers. So we work very closely with them and then dream with them to find out what are the innovative ways for us to help them to build their digital infrastructure globally. And some of the great ideas came up because of that what we call it co-ideation process. One of the examples that I listed out a few logos here. Those are the things that just came out. And then we also have a pipeline of new stuff that we're incubating right now. So Equinix Smart Key, that's a perfect example of the great results we're seeing when we dream it together with our customers. So the idea actually was a result when we talking to our customers to help them to solve the data encryption issues in a multi-cloud environment. So for folks who are in that cloud computing industries, more and more customers are moving, or enterprises specifically, are moving their infrastructure into the cloud, right? And then they start with one cloud and end up with that, oh, I don't want to be locked into one cloud. They start to have multiple clouds. And guess what? Your data moves there as well. Then you start to have very sensitive information that are distributed everywhere, and then how to secure them. right? You don't want to trust the person who keep your stuff and keep the box of your valuables, at the same time give the key back to them as well. So this is where Equinix can basically come up with a solution jointly with customers to help them to encrypt the data, secure that data, while they can safely build their digital infrastructure. This is actually one of the products that give me a bragging power whenever I was talking to my daughter. So I believe almost everyone tried Taco Bell, tried KFC, right? Nowadays, if you go there, swipe your credit card, guess what? Equinix Smart Key is actually being used to help to secure the transactions. So then the other very good example is Equinix Cloud Exchange. Again, it's the results from the collaboration or the co-ideation process with one of the largest cloud providers out there. They asked us to build some private interconnections to connect them with our joint customers. So we worked together and we built a product called Equinix Cloud Exchange Fabric. And nowadays, ECX Fabric is serving over 1,000 enterprise and service provider customers. And then the same story goes to Network Edge. So once we started dreaming it together, and I think the second step that we took is how we prioritize stuff, right? How you decide together, because there's so many great things out there. And then when you look at it, say, oh, I want to build this, I want to build that, I want to build that. But you only have limited time, you have limited resource, how to prioritize. And actually that's the dilemma that all the innovators are actually facing. So this is where we take the approach to decide it with our customers. And IBX Smart View is the product which actually result from the prioritization with some of our customers. And the IBX Smart View is a data center infrastructure management product that leverage AI and machine learnings to help us better manage our data centers, and then also automatically alert our customers and us if there is any issues detected. So the last part I want to point it out here is once we dream it together, we decide it together, you have to build it, right? So most of the times we join forces with our customers to build those products together. And there are different vehicles that we're leveraging, or the channels that we're leveraging to handle that co-development process. Like for instance, we have something called Customer Advisory Board, and then also Technical Advisory Board that allow us to build that direct communication channels with our customers. So they will be able to come in and then tell us, this should show up on the roadmap. This is great, this is added values, and help us to decide and also take their input and build that products together. And then the other one that we introduced is called Minimal Variable Tractions, MVT. Probably lots of you have heard of something called MVP, Minimal Variable Products. Actually, that's an often used terms in startup companies as well. So MVT is the process to help us to bring products to the market, to our customers in a very early stage. So that as we discussed in the very beginning, when you build a product, you want to make sure that it's desirable, feasible, and viable. So MVT basically allows us to do that early market testing and then make sure that we are building something which is sitting in that sweet intersection spots. And well, if you are a product company nowadays, is how can you do that without a developer platforms or developer forums? So we provide developer forums to help us to connect directly with developers out there. So it's a great vehicle for developers to provide feedbacks so that we'll be able to take that input and improve our products together. And then also, I was very excited to announce that now we're a proud Gold member of CNCF. And then we're also actively contributing back to the open source communities. So we believe that's the new way of building products. It's not just by yourself, it's to build with the communities out there. Last but not least, we host meetup sessions, and we recently did one in the edge computing domains, and we are going to host more in the coming month as well. And this event is also a great channel for us to reach out, to tell you more about our products, to get your feedbacks, and then to help to basically collect all the inputs and make sure that we're building something that customer wants. So if you're interested knowing more about how we're turning those innovations into products, if you happen to be very excited about incubating new products, come to talk to us. We actually have a table over there set up to tell you more about the things that we're doing. And by the way, we're hiring, okay? So that's one thing I was talking to our HR partners is like, as a hiring manager, I feel like I'm a kid in a candy store, right? There's so many talented women here. And then you know that in Silicon Valley, it is really hard, okay? So please take a few minutes to talk to us if you are interested. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. That was so impressive. I'm sure you inspired a lot of folks here for thinking about innovation and remembering how to reach that sweet spot. Our next speaker is Rozanne Stoman. She is the Director of IT for Sales and Marketing Applications. Rozanne will share her journey in career in technology. She will talk about an alchemic blend of science, art, and language that helps her teams deliver exceptional solutions. Welcome, Rozanne.
So good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for this opportunity for me to share some thoughts with you. So here at Equinix, my team and I take care of a portfolio of enterprise applications that are used primarily by our sales and our marketing, legal teams. And so in a given day, my team, they're primarily business systems analysts. Any business systems analysts in the room? Analysts of any type? I bet there are a lot of analysts who just don't know that's what they are. So in any given day, such an analyst may troubleshoot an issue, they may propose a data model, they may give input to a user interface design, they might evaluate a new tool if there's a gap for us that we haven't built ourselves. So some things we build from scratch and some things we stitch together from existing tool sets or applications. And so with that, what I wanted to talk about, this unique blend of characteristics that we found often makes for a really good systems analyst. And I'm a proud mama hen in my team. Boys and girls, we've got really just such a strong team, and often I kind of sit around and go, how did I get so lucky, And when I started my career, I must confess, I sort of had this slightly linear view of what may predict success later. I remember I was maybe around 25. I was working for a small company, and we were expanding our team, and I was given a recruiting assignment. And so I got a whole lot of university resumes, and I looked through them, and I sort of selected. I think I was playing it safe, so I selected, the highest grades and all the subjects that seemed the smartest. So that was my short list, and then they put me on a plane. I could meet some of the faces behind these resumes, had some really interesting conversations, and I walked away thinking, well, these are really smart people that I've just spoken to, but what am I missing? I'm not sure I'm looking for the right stuff yet. And my mentor at the time, he gave me all sorts of interesting advice. One piece of advice was, Rozanne, you got to grow some teeth. You got to sharpen your teeth. I don't know if I ever did that, but he also told me, you got to look for the sparkle in their eye. And so there I was trying to now reconcile math grades with eye sparkles. And over the years now, as I've been watching my teams, who, as I said, they rock, I do think that there's this special combination of science, and I'll describe and I think that will echo some of what DJ shared with us as well, and Jung. Language, and then art, or maybe I'll just call it an eye. And those things together, I think, can make a great predictor for success. So as we've heard, and I'm really happy that this has come up tonight, the science part is table stakes. You got to know your stuff, right? So that analytical mind who always wants to improve stuff, who isn't daunted by team dynamics or process complexity or perceived obstacles, but who can patiently unpick process complexity and then sort of forge this path to success, that's invaluable. And we often joke in our team, and we're like, if you're an analyst, you have one job. You have to take complicated things and make them simple. And sometimes very smart people like to take simple things and show you how complicated they can be. And part of an analyst is, yes, you want to see all the angles, but a good analyst gets great joy from presenting solution options and not just problems. I'm also learning that technical adeptness can take many shapes. It manifests in different ways. You know, we have non-IT counterparts who are deep technologists. And I think with all the new technologies that we now have available to us, we're learning that you can sometimes forge really good solutions without necessarily understanding recursion or be able to tweak database indices or program in R, you know? So there's just these new solution sets standing up so fast that you have to be comfortable with transferring whatever knowledge you have to this domain or tool sets. I still believe you have to understand enough to anticipate the consequences or the impacts of what you're designing. But it's sort of a dance, which gets me to number 2. I think there's enough sort of anecdotal references to, you know, the links between like music and math, etc. So I'm not really that surprised at the number of photographers and designers and dreamers in our midst. Here at Equinix, you know, we kind of make space for everyone. We have art galleries up in some of our buildings. We have different forums where people can share all the talents that they have. And I think the desire to explore every problem, whether that's, you know, the composition of a photograph or how we will navigate our GDPR legislation or how we will help our marketing team to score leads or how we will put, you know, apps governance in place and then navigate all the teams there. For the right personality, any of these are just exciting puzzles to solve. And it's just as natural as, you know, choreography or gaming a tournament. So for us, it doesn't really matter what the passion is, but what matters is that you see that here is sort of an active analytical mind that's always looking to optimize whatever gets put in front of it. And then finally, the last piece in that toolkit that I really appreciate is language. That ability to craft a sentence or distill or read between the lines or kind of hear a problem empathetically. The natural teachers in the team who, you know, tend to educate their peers to raise the bar for the whole group or educate their customers so that they can get better requirements and, you know, better results from them. That combination is often the last bit in an analyst's sort of superpower. So in short, science or tech, knowing your stuff, some kind of art or expression or eye for that, and then language combined for us are a powerful combination that help our teams to create very innovative solutions. So the takeaway for me, you know, whether you're a Girl Geek or whether you're mentoring and inspiring Girl Geeks is, one is don't underestimate your superpowers. You know, I also came to tech in a roundabout way. I thought I loved writing. Then I studied accounting because I thought that's where I would, you know, how I would fund my way into a career. And then accidentally on the way, I fell in love with programming, which is how I started my career. And here in the US, I'm really inspired by the number of paths that there are to become part of exciting tech projects and to contribute. So in closing, you keep your analytical mind brewing, and you keep the sparkle in your eye. Thank you.
Hi. So the next speaker is your truly. My name is Dipti Srivastava, and I am a senior manager, product engineering at Equinix. Today, I'll be talking to you about how to leverage IoT and big data to monitor data centers. So a little bit trivia about me. When you get introduced to somebody, what's the next thing you might ask? Well, you might ask, where are you from? I get this question all the time, especially from people of Indian origin, because they are always interested to know where you are from, because I'm an Indian, or I used to be an Indian. So, well, my answer is I'm from Jhansi. And immediately, 100% of the time, the answer, the response is, oh, you are a Jhansi ki Rani. Well, Jhansi ki Rani. Rani means queen, and I am privileged to belong or being brought up in a city or a town which, where she lived. She was a freedom fighter, and I can only dream to be, to compare her, the valor, her courage, her determination. So we are surrounded by role models, and she's been one of mine. As a little girl, I was interested in science, and one of my role models was Madame Curie. The reason I bring this up, and it was a recent incident, that I was at Warsaw, right, where we have one of our product development centers for Equinix, and I was visiting the downtown Warsaw. There was somebody who just showed me, hey, that's where Madame Curie lived. I was grounded, I was floored, right? Because I was seeing the place where one of my role models lived. Thank you to Equinix, I got this opportunity to travel to Warsaw and see where she lived. Fast forward, I was a science student, and really I loved science. So I got into computer science and then into software development, and the same story of a lot of people here in Silicon Valley, right? I had the good fortune of starting my career with, in a platform company. I got introduced to platform thinking, where you think about that you cannot solve all the problems out there in your domain, in your space. You need a helping hand. You build an ecosystem of integration points, APIs, other things with which you can leverage developers, partners who will help build solutions who are going to, on top of your platform, right, to enhance and solve the problems out there in the world. Fast forward, in the digital age, in the IoT age, welcome to digital platforms. And I've been working on digital platforms for a few years now, working on smart cities, intelligent buildings, and most recently here at Equinix, data center monitoring. Thinking about monitoring, I was introduced to monitoring long time back at school. I keep going back to my school where I had all my education. So I was a class monitor. And what did I do as a class monitor? Well, if there is something happening, you report to your teacher. If there's something happening, report to the other students or students of the other class. Keep an eye for, somebody doing mischief. So there are a lot of things happening which, I had to monitor all the time, right? So, well, here I am building data center infrastructure monitoring platforms, right? So why do we need monitoring in data centers, right? Well, on any given day, a lot of things could be happening in any data center around the world. Equinix has 200 plus data centers around the world. In these geographically distributed data centers, we have heterogeneous devices, assets, which power our data centers. There could be a number of things happening like equipment failures, extreme weather conditions, where temperature and humidity could be of abnormal values, impacting our operational efficiencies. There could be significant changes in power draws. And by the way, who all is not familiar with the PG&E outages over the last few months, right? So utility power interruptions can impact data centers, right? So some or all of these things and many more is something that we need to monitor and make sure are working every day in order to ensure that our customers are really driving value from Equinix. They are stress-free. They do not need to worry about their workloads running in our data center. So what do our users want? Our users want visibility to their core infrastructure, which is running their workloads, right? Because they might have critical business applications running on our data centers. They would like to have actionable insights, which give them real-time information about any issue that happens, which might impact their workloads, and as such, their customers, right? And they want to have this access to this information anytime, anywhere. And we are able to provide that to them through our web interfaces. They also want integration points in the form of REST APIs and real-time channels so that they can integrate with any of the solutions that they have in-house. So the approach, what is the approach to solve these problems, right? We defined it as an IoT problem, and that was the key, right? All the data centers that we have around the world, they are the edge, right? And as soon as we defined that what edge we had an IoT solution. We also planned to design a solution which could scale as you grow, as our customer needs grow. And we also made sure that for our data center, we could handle 500 terabyte plus of data, 2.5 million stream of events across 60,000 industrial IoT devices. So this is, a view of 10,000 feet view of our data center infrastructure monitoring platform. There are three key things to observe here. One is the edge, right? The edge is all the 200 IBXs plus IBXs that we have. Then there is the data processing and storage. And finally, all the applications, tools, integration points, and partner ecosystems. I'll just talk about two things here. The edge. The edge is our data center, like I said. And the edge is complicated, right? It is comprised of heterogeneous assets. They could be your power supplies. They could be, generators of different make and models and different manufacturers. The key thing to do here is to make sure that we normalize them. That way, our machines can understand them, right? The second thing is to collect this data. All of these devices may talk any language or not, and talk different languages too, right? So we need to make sure that we understand that language and collect all this data, process it, analyze it, and then feed it to all our applications, which can then be leveraged by our customers and by ourselves, right? In order to provide operational efficiency for Equinix and Equinix customers. This is a 1,000 level view of the application platform. So drilling down a little bit, the key thing I just wanted to highlight here was, if you see, this is the platform, applications platform concept, where we provide integration points via REST APIs and real-time feeds on Google, AWS, Azure, and through private channels, right? And through REST APIs for all of the things that you're hearing about in the data center, which are relevant, like power, electrical, mechanical assets, and environmental assets for which measure temperature and humidity. Our tech stack. In order to build these world-class solutions, we need to make sure that we have a tech stack which can support these, right? So we have chosen, I'll just name a few, Kafka, Cassandra, Redis, Storm, for our real-time processing, and many more for our applications, Spring, Play, Java, right? And for the tooling, we have Kubernetes, Jenkins, and so on. So we have a variety of tools, applications, and platforms which power our data center infrastructure monitoring platform. Now, how do we all do this, right? That's what we do, but how do we all do this? A day in the life. A day in the life of a product development could be, you could be doing anything here. We follow Agile and Scrum, and you could be doing requirements, design, development, CI/CD, quality, availability, monitoring. The key thing here, what differentiates us is that we measure each of these things. We measure how we do things and ensure that with every time we keep improving, because that way we can make keep getting better and better at what we do. So what's different in our solution from what it was before? Before, the way the data centers were being monitored were through heterogeneous, localized building management systems, right? Today, with our monitoring platform, we get globally consistent data across all the footprint, across all of Equinix, for all, about everything you would like to know, right, about your infrastructure. So that's the key thing. And the other thing is about our API-first approach, which allows customer and partner to integrate with their own applications so that, if they would like to do so. Why I love Equinix? Do I have to say that? So we had 2 hackathons this year, which were a great success. So I work with a lot of innovative people, full of creativity. And the other thing, as you already heard from Yoon's talk, right, and other speakers here, really believe in diversity and innovation and how, and inclusion, and how it sort of enables us to build better products and create value for our customers. Thank you, everyone. So finally, I think we are hiring. Right, so I think, and you heard from Yoon, Danjue, and others that we are hiring. This is a list of some of the positions that we have open, and there's many more on our careers website. We have our TA team back there, with a lot of giveaways. So please say hi to them. They are waving at you. And so yeah, you would welcome to go talk to them if you are interested in any of these open positions. We have people who are in these black shirts who are Equinix ambassadors. So please, if you would like to chat with them to know more about Equinix product, or anything you would like to talk about, you're welcome to talk to them. Finally, I would like to thank you all for being here at Equinix, spending your precious evening with us here today, and listening to all the awesome speakers that we have had here before me. And I would like to thank all the speakers as well for being here and sharing your precious thoughts. Thank you all.